You're brushing your teeth, half asleep, mind completely blank, and then, out of nowhere, it's back. Not a bill you forgot to pay, not tomorrow's meeting. The thing you said in ninth grade. The joke that landed wrong. The name you got wrong in front of the whole class. Years later, and your body still winces like it happened an hour ago. You didn't summon it. You weren't thinking about school, or awkward moments, or anything even close. 1 second you're rinsing your mouth, and the next you're standing in a hallway that doesn't exist anymore, cringing at a version of yourself who has been gone for years. This happens to almost everyone. Driving. Folding laundry. Lying in bed in that stretch of time right before sleep. A song plays for 3 seconds and suddenly you're not in your car anymore, you're back at that party, remembering exactly what you said and exactly who heard it. The question isn't really, why do I remember embarrassing things? Most people assume they already know that answer, embarrassing things feel bad, so they stick. The real question is stranger, and it's the one almost nobody stops to ask, why does the memory show up right now? You weren't looking for it. You didn't ask your brain to go find it. It arrived uninvited, fully formed, like it had been waiting behind a door that opened on its own. For a long time, it's tempting to imagine memory as something like a filing cabinet, or a hard drive. Somewhere in there, you assume, is a folder labeled embarrassing, and every so often your brain reaches in, grabs a file at random, and plays it back to you, almost like a punishment. It's a reasonable guess. It's also wrong. Memory doesn't work like storage. It works like a network. Every memory you have isn't sitting alone in its own folder, it's connected to dozens, sometimes hundreds, of other things, a smell, a texture, a rhythm of speech, a color of light, a feeling in your chest. Psychologists who study this call it associative memory, and the key idea is simple. When one part of that network activates, the activation doesn't stay contained. It spreads. So think about what actually happened in the shower, or the car, or right before you fell asleep. Your mind wasn't blank. It never really is. It was drifting, through a stray thought, a half-formed feeling, maybe just the rhythm of water hitting tile that echoed something from years ago without you noticing. That tiny, forgettable moment brushed against one thread in the network. And that thread happened to be connected to the memory of a hallway, a joke, a name said wrong. The activation spread, and the old memory surfaced, not randomly, but because something, somewhere, quietly pulled the thread. There's a reason these memories tend to surface during specific kinds of moments, showering, driving a familiar route, folding laundry, and not, say, while you're deep in a hard problem at work. Tasks that don't require much conscious effort don't just leave your hands free, they leave your attention free too. When nothing is pulling your focus tightly in one direction, your mind is freer to drift through loose association, brushing against far more of that connected network than it would if you were tightly focused elsewhere. It's not a coincidence that the classic setting for one of these memories is autopilot. Focused attention narrows what gets activated. Unfocused attention lets the network breathe. This is what psychologists call involuntary autobiographical memory, a personal memory that enters your awareness without you deliberately trying to retrieve it. And here's the part that tends to surprise people, it's not rare, and it's not a malfunction. It's actually one of the most common and well-documented ways human memory operates. Deliberate remembering, the kind where you sit down and try to recall something on purpose, is only part of the picture. A large share of what we remember day to day arrives the way that old memory did, unbidden, triggered by something we barely noticed consciously. That last part matters. It can feel like the memory appeared from absolutely nowhere, with no cause at all. But, no cause you noticed isn't the same as no cause. The brain is picking up on far more than conscious attention ever registers, background sounds, physical sensations, tiny shifts in mood, fragments of thought that never fully form into words. Any one of those can be enough to nudge a connected memory into awareness. The trigger was there. It just happened below the surface. There's another piece of the puzzle worth understanding. because it explains why embarrassing memories specifically seem to have a talent for showing up. Emotionally significant moments tend to form richer, more densely connected webs of association than neutral ones. A quiet, uneventful afternoon might barely register a single thread in your memory network. But an embarrassing moment, full of heightened feeling, physical sensation, social stakes, gets stitched into many more connections at once. More connections mean more possible doorways back in. That doesn't mean every embarrassing memory is stronger than every good one, or that your brain is somehow biased toward humiliation. It simply means an emotionally charged memory tends to have more paths leading to it, so more small, unrelated cues are statistically likely to eventually bump into one of those paths. It's tempting to think of this as a design flaw, but the underlying system is actually doing something useful. An associative, spreading kind of memory is what lets a smell instantly bring back a childhood kitchen, or a stranger's laugh remind you of an old friend before you can even say why. The same flexible wiring that occasionally surfaces an old embarrassment is the wiring that lets you recognize a familiar face in a crowd or notice a pattern you've seen before. The embarrassing memory isn't a special malfunction carved out of an otherwise well-behaved system. It's an ordinary side effect of a memory built for flexibility rather than precision. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Every time that memory resurfaces, you're not replaying a stored recording. There is no untouched, pristine version of that moment sitting somewhere in your brain, waiting to be pulled up exactly as it happened. Memory is reconstructive. Each time you remember something, your brain rebuilds it, using whatever pieces are available, filtered through how you feel right now, what you've learned since, and how you've told the story to yourself in the meantime. That's not a flaw in the system. It's simply what memory is. The version of that old memory you experience today isn't identical to the one you experienced the first time you recalled it. It has been quietly reconstructed, again and again, each time slightly reshaped by the act of remembering itself. So what does all of this actually mean, standing there with your stomach doing that familiar drop? It means the memory wasn't hunting you down. Your brain isn't running some background process designed to humiliate you on a schedule. There's no punishment being administered, no lesson being taught, no alarm going off. What happened is far less dramatic and far more ordinary, a small, barely noticed cue brushed against a richly connected memory, and the activation spread until it reached conscious awareness. Your brain didn't ask your permission, because it rarely does. Voluntary, deliberate remembering is the exception, not the rule. It's also worth being precise about what this is not. This isn't the same thing as the intrusive memories that can follow real trauma, the kind that arrive with overwhelming intensity, refuse to stay in the past, and interfere with daily life. Those involve a different pattern entirely, and they deserve to be treated as something separate and clinical, not lumped in with an awkward memory from a school hallway. What you're experiencing when an old cringe moment pops up during a completely ordinary afternoon is, by contrast, a normal feature of how autobiographical memory works. Nearly everyone experiences it. It isn't evidence of anxiety, or a disorder, or anything being wrong with you. Which means the story you've probably been telling yourself, that your brain is randomly torturing you, was never quite right. It wasn't random. It was connected. A quiet cue, an old thread, a network doing exactly what memory networks do, linking one moment to another, whether you asked it to or not. The wince still happens. The heat in your face is still real. But the next time an old embarrassing memory shows up uninvited, you'll know it wasn't pulled from some filing cabinet to punish you. It surfaced because your mind is still doing what it has always done, wandering, connecting, quietly rebuilding the past one flickering thread at a time. Nothing broken. Just a mind that never really turns off.